In December 1945, near the cliffs of Nag Hammadi in Upper Egypt, a peasant named Muhammad Ali al-Saman made a discovery that would threaten the foundations of Western religion. While digging for fertilizer, his mattock struck something solid. It was not rock. It was a sealed red clay jar buried deep beneath the sand. Inside that jar were 13 leather-bound papyrus codices, ancient books that had been hidden for 1,700 years. These were not ordinary texts. These were the survivors of a massive intellectual purge. In the 4th century, as the Orthodox Church consolidated its power, bishops ordered the destruction of all heretical writings. Monks, defying these orders, took their most sacred books and buried them in the desert, hoping that one day a future generation would find them.
Among these forbidden texts was the Apocryphon of John. It claims to be a secret revelation given by Jesus to his disciple John after the resurrection. This was not a public sermon, but a private transmission of knowledge meant only for those capable of understanding it. In this text, Jesus describes a reality that modern science is only just beginning to parallel. He describes the universe not as a creation of love, but as a copy, a flawed simulation constructed to trap consciousness. And he describes a signal, a frequency called the monad, that is calling us to wake up. To understand the gravity of what you are about to hear, you have to understand the world in which these texts were written. The Gnostics were not a cult. They were the intellectuals, the mystics, and the seekers of the early Christian world. They believed that faith,
or pistis, was inferior to knowledge, or gnosis. Faith meant believing what you were told by an authority. Gnosis meant direct, experiential contact with the divine. The church hierarchy could not control people who had direct contact with God. If you know the source, you do not need a priest. You do not need a bishop. You do not need an institution. And so, Gnosticism was labeled the ultimate heresy. The texts were burned, the teachers were exiled, the knowledge was suppressed. For nearly 2 millennia, we only knew about the Gnostics through the writings of their enemies. Imagine trying to understand a philosophy only by reading the attacks written against it. That was our history. Until 1945, when that jar was opened, the voice of the Gnostics returned. And what they say about our world, our minds, and our purpose is terrifyingly relevant to the modern experience.
The Apocryphon of John presents a cosmology that turns the book of Genesis on its head. It argues that the entity we have been taught to worship, the creator of the material world, is not the true God. The text describes a rupture in the divine realm, the pleroma. From this rupture emerged an entity named Yaldabaoth, also known as the Demiurge. The name roughly translates to child of chaos. This entity was born in ignorance. He looked out into the void, saw no other light, and concluded, "I am God, and there is no other God beside me." The Gnostics argue that the material universe is the product of this arrogance. It was not created to nurture life. It was created to mirror the Demiurge's desire for control. It is a system of containment. But the Demiurge did not work alone.
The text describes the creation of the Archons, subordinate rulers who administer the laws of this false reality. In the ancient world, Archons were viewed as planetary rulers. But if we strip away the mythology and look at the mechanism, the description is strikingly psychological. The Gnostics described Archons as mind parasites. They are forces that do not have their own creative power. They can only imitate and distort. They envy the human being
because the human possesses something they lack, the divine spark, a fragment of the true monad. Their function is to keep this spark dormant. How do they do it? They do not use chains. They use frequency.
They use perception. The text suggests that the Archons operate through our lower emotions: fear, anxiety, tribalism, and obsession with material gain. Think about your own mind. Think about the automatic negative thoughts that loop in your head at 3 a.m., the voice that tells you that you are a failure, the sudden, irrational fear that stops you from taking a risk. The Gnostics would say, that is not you. That is an archontic insertion. It is a program running in your background to harvest your energy. The concept is simple but radical. When you identify with these thoughts, you feed the system. You generate the emotional energy, the louche, that sustains the construct. But when you recognize them as foreign intruders, when you observe them without attachment, you starve them. This is the core of Gnostic liberation.
The realization that your mind has been hacked and the reclaiming of your sovereignty. The Apocryphon of John does not just analyze the prison, it analyzes the prisoners. It offers a categorization of human consciousness that explains why some people seem perfectly content with the status quo, while others feel like they are slowly dying inside it. The text divides humanity into 3 types: the Hylics, the Psychics, and the Pneumatics. The first type is the Hylics, from the Greek word for matter. These are individuals who are entirely identified with the body and the material world. Their concerns are purely physical: survival, comfort, status, and sensory pleasure. They do not ask philosophical questions. They do not feel existential angst.
If you try to talk to a Hylic about the nature of reality or spiritual awakening, they will look at you blankly. The text says they are dead to the spirit. They are not evil. They are simply part of the scenery, fully integrated into the Demiurge's system. They are the background characters of the simulation. The second type is the Psychics, from the Greek word for soul or mind. These are the intellectuals, the moralists, the religious followers. They have a soul, and they feel a pull towards something higher. They create laws, they debate ethics, they build churches and temples. But their understanding is limited to the level of the mind. They believe in the God they are told to believe in. They follow the rules. They mistake the map for the territory. A psychic can be a very good person, but they remain asleep because they seek truth outside of themselves. In books, in leaders, in dogmas. They are trapped in the golden cage of belief. The third type is the Pneumatics, from the Greek word for spirit or breath. These are the Gnostics. The Pneumatic carries a dormant seed of the monad itself. This is the divine spark. If you are a Pneumatic, you cannot be satisfied by the material world like the Hylic, or by religious dogma like the Psychic. There is a fundamental incompatibility between your essence and this reality. You feel a constant, low-level friction with the world. You look at human society, the wars, the greed, the mindless consumption, and it does not just make you sad, it makes you confused. It feels alien. You have a deep, unshakable intuition that you come from somewhere else. The Gnostics called this the remembrance. It is the feeling of being a stranger in a strange land. The tragedy of the Pneumatic is that, without gnosis, they often suffer the most. They are diagnosed with depression, anxiety, or attention disorders. They numb themselves with addictions because the pain of living in a false construct is too acute. But the text says this pain is not a defect. It is an alarm clock. It is the monad calling you home. So,
How do you know if the monad is active in you? The text is specific. It outlines signs that mark the transition from a sleeping pneumatic to an awakening one. These are not signs of peace. They are signs of disruption. Awakening is destructive before it is creative. The first sign is the disruption of false comfort.
The things that used to work for you stop working. The job you worked hard to get now feels like a prison. The entertainment you used to enjoy now feels mindless. The social circle you belong to feels superficial. This is often called the dark night of the soul, but the Gnostics would call it the rejection of the counterfeit. Your internal frequency is rising, and as it rises, it falls out of phase with the low-frequency signals of your environment. You literally cannot resonate with the old life anymore. This creates a crisis. You feel ungrateful. You feel broken. You ask, why can't I just be happy like everyone else? The answer is because you are not like everyone else. You are waking up in a room where everyone else is still dreaming. The second sign is the perception of the script. This is an intellectual shift. You start to see the mechanisms of control. You stop debating politics or getting angry at the news because you start to see that both sides are part of the same script. You see the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution, playing out in real time. You walk through a shopping mall and you do not see products. You see psychological triggers designed to exploit insecurity. You see the archontic feeding mechanism. This X-ray vision can be isolating, but it is the definitive sign that your third eye, the pineal gland, the seat of the soul, is decalcifying. You are seeing the wires of the puppet show. The third sign is the resonance of paradox. You begin to find truth in paradoxes. The binary thinking of the world, good versus bad, us versus them, starts to dissolve. You realize that the light of this world is often a false light, and the darkness is where the true secrets are hidden. You feel a magnetic pull toward esoteric knowledge, toward silence, toward the unknown. You start having what Jung called big dreams, dreams that feel more real than waking life, where you are taught or tested. This is the monad bypassing the conscious mind, which is guarded by the Archons, to communicate directly with the spirit during sleep. So, you have the spark. You feel the signs. What do you do? How do you bypass the Archons and connect with the source? The Apocryphon of John does not give us a prayer to recite. It gives us a protocol of internal alchemy. We can break this down into 7 distinct responses, a method to stabilize the frequency of the monad within the human vessel. The first response is radical recognition. You must stop identifying with your biography. You are not your name. You are not your job. You are not your trauma. You are not even your thoughts. Those are all garments stitched by the Demiurge. To practice this, sit in a quiet room. Close your eyes. Ask yourself, who is listening to these thoughts? Move your attention back, behind the thinker. That silent witness is the pneumatic self. Identifying with that is recognition. The second response is sovereign authority. The Archons rule through hierarchy. They want you to look up for salvation. The Gnostic looks in. You must strip away the subconscious belief that you need permission to access the divine. Stop praying like a beggar. Stop asking for things. Instead, align. Do not say, please give me strength. Say, I call forth the strength that is already mine. It is a subtle shift in grammar that represents a massive shift in power. The third response is apophatic stillness. The Archons feed on noise, both internal and external. To hear the monad, you must create a vacuum of silence. This is what the Greeks called apophatic mysticism, finding God by negation, by stripping away what is not God. Spend 10 minutes a day doing absolutely nothing. No phone, no music, no meditation technique, just sitting. When the itch to do something arises, watch it. That itch is the system trying to pull you back into the loop. Let it pass. The silence that remains is the frequency of the source. The fourth response is the vocal declaration. Sound is vibration. Vibration structures matter. When you speak, you are casting a spell. Most people use their voice to complain, to gossip, or to repeat the script. The Pneumatic uses the voice to override the program. State your reality. I am a sovereign being. I am not my body. I am the observer. Say it out loud. Feel the resonance in your chest. You are physically retuning your biofield to a frequency that repels low vibrational entities. The fifth response is active observation. Once you initiate this contact, the world will respond. The monad communicates through synchronicity. Treat your life like a dream you are trying to interpret. Pay attention to repeating numbers, overheard conversations, or sudden insights. These are not random. They are the breadcrumbs leading you out of the labyrinth. Keep a journal. Document the glitches in the matrix. The sixth response is non-reaction. This is the most difficult step. As soon as you begin to wake up, the system will try to put you back to sleep. You will face resistance. Your car will break down. You will get into a fight with your partner. You will feel a sudden wave of hopelessness. Do not engage emotionally. See it for what it is, a retention mechanism. If you get angry, they eat. If you get scared, they eat. If you stay neutral, if you look at the chaos and say, I see you, they starve. Indifference is your shield. The seventh response is the 7-day stabilization. The text implies that it takes time for the light to settle. It is a process of crystallization. Commit to this awareness for 7 days. 7 days of watching your thoughts. 7 days of reclaiming your voice. 7 days of silence. By the 7th day, the connection solidifies. You move from having a spiritual experience to being a spiritual being. What happens after the activation? Do you leave the world? No. The Gnostic goal is not to escape the world physically, but to transcend it internally. You become what the texts call a passerby. You still go to work, you still pay your bills, you still love your family, but you are no longer of the world. You are in it, but not defined by it. The drama of politics, the hysteria of the media, the pressure of status, it all looks like a game to you. A game you can play if you choose, but one you know is not real. This gives you a superpower called detached engagement. You can navigate the world with humor and lightness because you do not fear it anymore. You know that the worst the Demiurge can do is kill the body, but he cannot touch the spark. This lack of fear makes you dangerous to the system. It makes you free. The Apocryphon of John ends with a promise. It says that the one who possesses this knowledge will ascend past the Archons. When the physical body dies, the unawakened soul is recycled, caught in the wheel of reincarnation, wiped of memory, and thrown back into the simulation. But the Pneumatic, the one who has remembered their origin, bypasses the trap. They return to the pleroma. They return to the true light. The discovery at Nag Hammadi was not an accident. The timing was not an accident. These texts resurfaced right at the moment humanity developed the power to destroy itself, right at the dawn of the digital age, a new technological simulation.
The monad knew we would need this manual. You did not click on this video by accident.
The algorithm is just a digital Archon, but even the Archons can be overruled by a higher signal. If you have listened this far, it is because your spark recognized the message. The jar has been opened. The information is out. The question is no longer, is there a way out? The question is, are you brave enough to take it? If you recognized yourself in the description of the Pneumatic, you have work to do. First, help this signal reach others. Like this video to break the suppression algorithm. Second, share this with one person you suspect is also waking up. And third, look at the pinned comment. I have selected a specific lecture from the Nag Hammadi library for those ready for the next level. The monad is calling. Do not go back to sleep.